what it is. I have a seafood sugar cookie playlist now in my Amazon Music. That's just all those songs I sent you. So now it's my car karaoke.
We need to have a conversation about it.
He's so happy right now.
We got it. We nailed it.
From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. And now broadcasting from the churn, that's Dr. Jim, that's Whitney, I'm Nick. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Everybody's traveling lately. You went to Sequoia. You went to Tahoe. Jacob went to Louisiana recently.
Oh my gosh, really quick, since I know we joke about me being a bitch since getting back from Hawaii.
Yeah,
I went to Lahaina. That's where I was at.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where I went in June.
That's
and
where
so
you
watching
were.
all these fires has been insane.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Insane.
Wow.
I just wanted to point out that, I don't know, we didn't
Whitney
really
lit
talk about
Hawaii on fire.
That's what I heard.
God, you are a bitch.
I know. Jesus.
That's one of the most bitchy things you can do is light an island on fire.
Yeah.
Especially that banyan tree.
Fucking howlies. Yeah. That's terrible, man.
That is sad, though.
It's so
Holy
sad.
shit.
Oh, yeah. What a tragedy.
I cannot
It's like the
believe that.
worst wildfire in history.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I heard.
God damn.
I think last I saw, like 95 people were dead, and
what I
there's still
heard.
like over 1,000
I watched this
missing.
video where this guy basically explained his whole theory that, well, it isn't a theory, but he was saying like all of this is just late stage capitalism. And he sort of explained how investment groups are now contacting people who lost their homes, trying to
Oh
buy
my
their land for
God.
dirt cheap from
Certainly.
underneath them in the middle of the tragedy because they know they're devastated
Yeah.
and they have nothing.
Yeah.
So they're offering them like 5% of the value of their properties because they're going to try to turn it, like redo it into a whole tourist thing. So it's this
Oh
incredible
my
video where this guy breaks down how
Makes me
this
sick.
was one of the only places where indigenous people had a
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's been devastated. It was devastated by these particular grasses that dried out,
Right.
and that was a big part of the burning. The grasses were planted by the Dole Corporation for cows to graze on for their farms.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
whenever they stopped having cows there, they never ripped up the grasses and never took it down because they said, fuck it, who cares? It'll never be a problem. And so he's like explaining it like from all these lenses of just
gosh.
colonialism, capitalism,
Oh,
just
yeah.
ultimately leading up to everything that's happening right now. And then fucking venture capital showing up just trying to buy out these guys.
I mean, honestly, you're making me feel bad about calling those people and trying to buy their houses.
Well, you're not investment capital.
Jacob,
you
we
know?
don't want you to feel bad.
No,
Good,
no.
thank you.
Smith
Yeah,
Capital
I feel
is a
bad.
respectable
Never
organization.
thought about it
Exactly.
like that.
He gives back to the community.
You're right, Whitney. I shouldn't feel bad.
Don't feel bad. I never thought of it that
Yeah,
way.
that's what I never thought about it like that.
This therapist gig is easy.
I know we're real good at what we do.
Feel
you know?
better. You know.
Feel better. I'm gonna take your
call.
advice. I'm gonna really do it.
Doing it this time.
I think you should try not being depressed.
Have you ever tried not doing that?
Go on a
And now,
walk.
for everybody
Go
who's
on a walk.
wondering, if you just go to the therapist the first time, they're not going to do it the first time.
No, not
They
the
have
first
to.
time.
They have to build the rapport.
Yeah.
And so, if you're still going to therapy, it's just because you haven't built enough of a rapport
Yeah.
with your therapist
So that we
yet
can just
for them
tell
to
you.
just tell you to feel better.
To do the
Yeah.
magic trick.
Yeah.
Gotta look you in the eyes.
Keep
do
doing
the
until you hear it.
That's it.
Jedi mind trick.
We do have all the answers, but we'll never give them away on the first visit.
Right.
No.
Well, you
can't just throw them out there.
You can't do it.
They're not ready. The
No.
people aren't ready. They must be prepared. So
When they are ready,
know why
the
that's
message will present itself.
there it is. The universe teaches all in its due time.
Yep.
Patreon.com/therapy. Come join in all the hijinks where we talk about our travel, Nick getting shirtless and greased up in Tahoe, and the terrible, unspeakable things that he's done into that lake.
Yes.
I'm ashamed of you, but
Yes.
yeah.
Well, Times
R.I.P.
were-
Lake
yeah.
Tahoe.
Times where I was desperate.
desperate
There are
times
a
call
lot
for
of
desperate
bears.
measures. I don't know.
There are a lot of bears in Lake
But
Tahoe.
holy shit, man, you got to get there.
I wanna go check it
You
out.
got to get there at 7 a.m.
Why?
It's
That's
full.
Because-
that's oddly
yes.
specific.
No,
Oh,
because to find a parking space.
oh,
Oh, yeah.
geez. Is
oh
it
my
bad?
God!
Hey,
you have
did
to
you
park
see-
miles away from the lake.
Did you hang out with Janye when you were up there?
It's-
I follow her
Jesus
Instagram.
Christ.
It's all Tahoe pictures. Like it's always Tahoe. I'm like, how
Her
close are you
name
to
is
Tahoe?
Janine.
Yeah, it looks like Janye to me.
He keeps pronouncing it.
It looks
Spell
like Janye.
this. Spell
It's
this.
clearly Janye.
Spell it, Jim.
G-E-A-N.
It's J first off.
Y-N-E.
Janye.
It's
okay.
how is it John Ye?
Also, it's J. It's not G. I think. I really don't know.
Oh, J. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
J-E-A-N.
Oh,
Jean.
okay.
Yeah.
Y-N-E.
Yeah, Janye.
Janine.
Y-N-E.
Janye. So anyway, But yeah, I always I like to. She's a great
Sorry.
Instagram follow, and I love.
Sorry,
It's
Janine.
always Tahoe pictures. And I'm like, damn, this place
That is
is
an
beautiful.
oddly spelled name.
That is. I was like,
Thank you.
It's an oddly spelled name, but like,
It's definitely not John Ye.
yeah. How do you get to John?
But I'm not
It's
entirely sure how
French.
you get to
Sounds
Janine.
French.
I'm not
either.
John.
jumping over roads, guys. I'm jumping over lanes. Okay, I'm not into oncoming traffic. I'm just merged over to the right. Maybe the lane's running out sooner than I think it is.
Okay, it's not even the fact that you're saying it wrong. It's the fact that you've been saying it wrong for years, and I've corrected you every time.
Yeah, I'm just not interested.
Jim's not going to start learning
This is a
stuff
version
now.
of
Yeah,
truth thing.
you're right.
You and I have
You're right, that's on
many
me.
disagreements
Yeah.
about how we pronounce things. I'm not about to be listening to your ass. Okay, the divide is way too deep.
Jim's mind's very concrete. Once it's there, it's not going to.
Yeah,
that is
out.
Formed. It's
That's
fully formed. I am an
100%
immovable object. Patreon.com/therapy. Don't
you're
forget
fat.
every Monday. You son of a bitch. I'm just getting all the hits today. It's terrible. Also, Nick had some zingers. If you want to hear zingers from Nick, patreon.com/therapy. Also, every Monday, we've got new stuff that we're releasing into the thread. I released part 3 this week of the book series Conscious Uncoupling. How to Live Happily Even After, talking about how relationships can end on a high note. And that's been really cool to do that exploration of the series.
However, that high note will be in a C major key.
Always a C major chord. Look, you got to know your vocal range, right? Jacob, come on. You're like a singer. I'm not a singer, but like you were a singer that knows theory, right? So
Jacob's
like
a singer?
you got to know your range. Isn't that a thing?
I mean, yeah, but that's not the same thing as a key.
Do you have to, what? I thought that's what that was.
No.
What's a,
Like a key does not imply a range.
okay.
A key is, I mean, theoretically limitless.
Huh.
In
So
breadth.
here's how I've explored this. So in guitar website thingy, you change the chords, right? You hit the little plus and minus button
Yeah,
to change the little
transpose
chords.
thing,
There it is, transpose them. So I'll do that, and then I'll play through. And I've figured out just through trial and error all these years that there's a certain chord set at a certain capo that I'll probably
That kind
sing
of
that whole
fits-
thing naturally.
Fits your voice.
No matter
Yeah.
what the song is, I'll probably hit every note in the song and feel comfortable about it.
Yeah.
And that's what my thing is. So if that's called a C key, then that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the default
You're a C major
human key.
guy.
I like to think
Or
of
an A
myself as
minor
C
guy.
major. Is it an A minor? I thought that what?
A minor and a
Shut
C
up,
major.
Jacob. Just hold on. You're doing so great today, buddy. Just the
I
level.
don't know what Jim's going to do with the minor, but I don't want to know.
There it is. I was so proud of you for a second. You were just biting your teeth. So I'm chewing on the sides of his mouth. Not doing it. The restraint this man. Are these the same thing? C major and A minor the same thing?
Yeah, it's going to be the same set of chords.
Okay. So
It's
they're
just-
all
yeah.
they're all right there.
It's just a different.
Well, we're on our way, buddy. See, Fruit
Okay.
Sugar Cookie is in development. We are officially workshopping this thing. So
Okay.
In person, you practicing?
no,
All right.
It starts with emails.
Yeah.
We've crossed the very first.
Like
step.
all bands do.
like the Beatles did.
Yeah. The Beatles started with email. The Eagles.
Yeah.
Stones.
Just start
Stones,
just
yep.
mailing letters. All right, we got some great questions for today's show. First one, being gaslit by my family, from Sammy Scoop. Hi, Dr. Lord Jim, Nick, Whitney, and Jacob. I heard you guys were out of questions, so I thought I'd help you out. So when I was about 24 years old, I was looking for my passport in my parents' house because we were taking a trip to Niagara, Canada. In my search for my lost passport, I came across adoption papers for myself and my older sister, Ethel. I came across adoption papers for myself and that my older sister, Ethel, is actually my biological mother. There's the sentence. I confronted my mother, Lucy, about it, and she told me that they were a mistake by the judge, and they were actually adoption papers for Ethel, who was adopted by Lucy in the 80s. I accept the lie because I was in denial at the time. A year or so later, I got curious about those papers and started asking my mom, Lucy, again, and she denied the existence of them. I asked Ethel, and she acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. I finally asked my brother, Barney, about it, and he just told me the truth. At this point, I just felt relieved that I wasn't going insane. I then reached out to Ethel, and she confirmed it as well, though she was reluctant to tell me. I wasn't even upset, and I understand why Ethel would have Lucy raise me. She was a senior in high school at the time. Ethel had another child 3 years later, my half-sister, who had a harder life than me. Though I did see her often when we were children and now. So I don't even question what it would have been like if I had been raised by Ethel. The issue I have is the fact that Lucy, who I'm still close to, for years afterward, told me that Barney was lying. Got mad at Barney for telling me. She even once had my aunt call to tell me Lucy was at her house crying, and why would I believe that Lucy isn't my biological mother? When Lucy got on the phone, she told me that she had pictures of being pregnant with me, which was a lie. I found out later that my aunt actually knew for decades that I was Ethel's child, so it wasn't even a lack of knowledge that caused her to say that. I finally got Lucy to admit to me that yes, what Barney said was true. However, she wants me to not say anything to anyone. I basically do that, though my friends know and my half-sister knows. I'm now in my 30s. These relationships have been well-defined for 3 decades. It would be strange for me to change them now. However, I do call my half-sister sister, since we're 3 years apart, and we've been close since childhood. So my questions to you is, what would make someone gaslight someone like my family basically did to me? Why would someone be so ashamed of something good they did for somebody else? Lucy took in a child in her 40s and raised me, while her husband, my dad, was traveling around the world for his job. I tell Lucy and show her that nothing changes, but she keeps telling me she would have never told me if Barney didn't say anything, even though this information is important just for medical history. Do you have any advice for parents who adopt when it's a right time to tell their child that they're adopted? Is there anything I should be doing to make Lucy comfortable with the idea of me knowing? P.S. You might want to ask what Lucy's husband thinks on the subject. He doesn't want to talk about it, so I don't push the issue. Also, we aren't that close due to him not being around when I was younger, though he does love me in his own way. Also, I didn't find my passport, so we had to see Niagara Falls on the New York side. Sad face. Thanks, Sammy.
Wow.
Oh, what a story.
So what would cause somebody to do that? I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind would be like, I'm just picturing like generational issues. Like, although this is like 30 years ago, so it does kind of surprise me that someone would be that bothered by it. But I know this happened all the time, like back in the 50s, you know, 40s, 50s, people would say like, oh no, we're just going to say it's not you and you're going to be the grandmother becomes the mom, just to kind of save face in the community and stuff. There was a lot of you know, stigma around that. But
that was definitely still happening in the South when I was in high school.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, I'll say to keep it vague, a friend of mine, her cousin was like this writer and found out that who they thought was their sister was their mom.
I've had several patients with that same story. People at Sammy's age, you know, in their 30s and 20s and discovered older sister, you know, was actually my biological mother.
Wild.
Yeah. And then my mother is my grandmother. Yeah.
And see, like the covering it up part doesn't really seem like a mystery to me. That seems obvious why it would happen.
To spare the feelings.
The thing that, I mean, well, not only the feelings, but then like the saving face in the community type thing, just the image, protecting the image, because every family does that to some extent, and some take it to a very dark place in order to kind of protect the image.
Sure.
You know, but the thing that bothers me most about it is the continual lying once it's out. That part would bother me. Like if it's out, hey, let's just talk about it. Let's just own it. But the idea of like, no, and then just continuing to try to cover it up when the cat's already out of the bag.
Have you ever kept a really stupid secret?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like something really stupid. There's no reason to keep it.
But now you just do.
But you do.
Like Santa Claus.
And you get in the habit of lying about that secret.
Right.
And that becomes just the thing that you do. It's, you know, I ate the last piece of cake.
Yeah.
I didn't eat the last piece of cake. Somebody else must have eaten the last piece of cake. It certainly wasn't me who ate the last piece of cake.
Right.
You can just own up and say, like, yeah, I ate the last piece of cake. I guess I'm kind of an asshole.
But this happens where you just kind of insist on it.
And that's the thing, is you can get locked into that. And I see this happen to people all the time.
Yep.
You can get locked into that lie and that story and well past the point of needing to defend it.
Well, and then it's hard to get out, right? Because now you're in so deep,
and that's
the greater crime is the cover-up.
So, like, whatever the reason was for not saying who mom was in the first place and everything, which there can be a lot of reasons. There can be things like what Nick was talking about. It can also just be as simple as she was still a young woman at that point, and everybody just agreed that she needed to have more life behind her before starting to raise a child. There's a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can start to feel like it's a bad thing because you're lying about it.
Did
and then you can kind of feel shame about that, and then when you stop and think about something, you're like, well, I shouldn't really feel shame about it. It's like what the writer says. They did a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to get into somebody's mind and get that switch to kind of flip. And it's like, you're right. I don't need to keep lying about this. This isn't a bad thing. This isn't a shameful thing. But you can just get in the habit of it. And
I do see I can see that definitely in the case of a very big lie that's very important to keep. Like, this isn't a life or death situation, but let's just say.
But it can feel like a very big lie.
Exactly.
Depending on the community, the beliefs, what have you.
If you were in a life or death situation and you had to have this lie to save yourself, and you've been saying this lie for 30 years, and then now we know it's a lie and everybody knows it, there's still that grasp, that clutch that we're still grabbing tight to it because it was so important at one time that it's hard to let go. I see that.
It felt like a big deal when we started lying about this. It felt like a big deal, and just in your head it becomes a big deal then.
Yeah.
Even if it's just something, I mean, it can be something silly. This isn't silly, but I mean, it's not a terrible thing either.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the mental weight of all of that. It sounds like I was going to say, maybe I should use the names Lucy and Ethel.
Yeah.
Sounds like Lucy is...
Got some splaining to do.
Lucy has... Yeah. Reiki?
Nice.
Lucy is...
I couldn't leave that pause. I couldn't let that pause go.
She is holding on to that story. And why is that, you're asking? Why would she hold on to that when you see it, Sammy, as a good thing and a helpful thing? It could be the narrative that she's told herself for so many years that letting go of that will alter her own view of her life and how she's lived it up to this point.
Right.
It could be such deep shame. I mean, you listed yourself that you mentioned the word ashamed in there in your letter. And I think shame is such a deep emotion. And if you were brought up to where you went as far as lying to your grandchild, to the community about all of this, what does that mean if that's outed or that's admitted to others?
And you're kind of having to say that it was all for nothing.
I know. Now what? Now the kid found out, like...
That's it. And I mean, how do you lie about something for 30 years?
Right.
And then turn around and say, boy, it was silly of me to lie about it. It was silly of me to do that thing I've been doing.
It felt like a big deal at the time.
Take lying out of it. Yeah. Let's just say, like, I took a walk around the block every day for 30 years.
I think it's
and then
deeper
one
than
day
that.
you just go like, I shouldn't have ever been walking around the block.
So this is such a special lie because it's one thing, I think we're using all these other comparisons. I had shouted Santa Claus, like all these situations where we've lied about something that we didn't have to lie about and we paint ourselves into a corner. This is so much deeper because in my view, this is an identity discussion.
Yeah,
and that gets very interesting to me. And this is something that I think that we've started to have a much bigger, more vague conversation about how humans, in a sense, get a right to identify themselves by what is internally true for them. We talk about this with gender, we talk about this with sexuality, and sometimes we are starting to have this deeper conversation about like, okay, so the fact pattern doesn't always have to match the subjective concept of identity because identity is a subjective concept. We're fundamentally talking about your perspective and your lived experience. I say all that because I think that makes this blurry because for me, I can understand as a parent the neurons in my brain connecting in such a way that I look upon this infant as my child. And there's this mantra over and over and over in my brain, and all the parental, like, dad instincts connect and bond, and I never see that child as not mine. You know what I'm talking about? And it's like, I think that this instinct can take over where you've ingrained yourself in this is my baby, this is my child, it's my little girl.
Self-talk, what we talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I register her for school for her first day of kindergarten. When I see her, my brain is unable to distinguish that this is technically my grandchild. She's my flesh and blood. She's my baby. I've raised her. I'm her mother. And I can see over those 2.5 decades, because this came out when Sammy was 24.
Yeah.
I can see the first time you come to Lucy and you go, what the hell? I can see Lucy, yes, she's going to factually know that she's lying to you, right? Yeah. But I can see on a bone level her kind of thinking,
it's like a natural
with all
response.
my heart, it is true. You are my daughter. I am your mother. You have no other. It's me. And so I can appreciate how this is a lie. It is deceptive. It does not match facts. And then there are these identity concepts that are woven into these relational dynamics. And I do think that makes it complicated. I'm not justifying it. Obviously, Sammy's very upset that everybody conspired to hide something from her when she, a grown-ass woman, was asking for clarification and has a right to know.
Yeah.
That's fair, but I guess I just want to relate for a second that I can see where it gets really complicated, and for nobody to be an evil person in that story.
I would say everything. I agree with all of that. I agree that Sammy has a right to be upset about this, and I don't think that people handled this well. For Sammy, though, I would suggest try to look at this as though it's coming from a place of love for you.
Sure.
And I'm not suggesting this because I believe this is the case. It may be, I don't know. But I'm suggesting this for your own kind of well-being.
Sure, yeah.
And that is, try to look at this and say, like, in some warped view, they were doing this out of love for me and for the rest of the family. And I'm going to try to look at it from that point of view. And I just think you will be happier going forward.
That's probably true.
Because, I mean, like, how much effort and hurt feelings do you want to go through to kind of solve this? And what will solve this? What will that solution look like? So I would. This is kind of a big way of me saying, if I were you, I would try to let it go.
Yeah, I mean,
I think you will just be happier, and that's all I'm concerned about here. I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think everything you're saying is correct.
Yep, you were being gaslit.
That's it.
It's a mess.
You were lied to, and that's not okay. But I want you, for your own sake, for your own happiness, for your own well-being, to just continue on past this and not let it wreck anything else.
Adoption stuff has come up before on the show. And we've got a little cohort of listeners who, every time adoption topics come up, usually tag us on the socials and direct us toward some really important resources for adoptee voices. And apparently, the movement of those who have been adopted, there's these deep philosophical discussions about questions like Sammy's asking. Mm-hmm. When should you tell the child? Yeah. And it's really good moral wrestlings of like, should you distract a child with this? Do they need to know? At some point, do they need to know for health reasons? Or some point, do they just need to know as an adult who's due free agency and the right to know everything about their truth?
Do they just have the right?
Yeah. If they organically stumble upon the questions and start asking, is that the time? I mean, shit, I don't have the right answers to this. Like, I don't know. It's case by case, I guess.
I know. I don't know either. Especially when you hear a lot of responses from adults who have been adopted as children, having developed feelings of like abandonment and that type of thing, just naturally. I mean, I could empathize with that in a lot of ways. It's just, that would be a horrible feeling to think, oh, my parent didn't want me. You know, that's the thought. Doesn't mean that's exactly how that went down. But
I wasn't thinking that before Whitney said
it. Surprise, Jacob, you're adopted. Something that jumped out to me.
How does she even know that?
Man, you said, is there anything I should be doing to make Lucy comfortable with the idea of me knowing? I guess initially, hearing Jim read that, it made me really feel for you, that you feel like responsible.
Yeah.
I mean, in my eyes reading this, and I'm sorry if you don't identify as this, I hope it comes across okay, but you are the victim here. You were lied to, you were gaslit to. You are just trying to figure things out and move through this, and these other people are the ones doing things to you.
Yeah, sure.
And here you are trying your hardest to find a way to communicate, it sounds like, with Lucy. And I guess I'd have a question of what your goals are. Are you wanting to have like a conversation with Lucy about it? Or are you just wanting Lucy to admit that?
I think Lucy did admit it,
well,
but still feels super uncomfortable with you knowing.
Right. And I guess you sharing that the dynamics mostly wouldn't change other than with your sister. That has always been kind of a sisterly relationship. But it kind of sounds like you wouldn't really be looking for the dynamics to change.
Right.
So I guess what would be your goal personally, Sammy, for wanting Lucy to be comfortable with the idea of you knowing? Are you trying to feel responsible for her feelings, or is that...
It sounds like Lucy spent most of your life desperately protecting you and the world from this truth and swearing her other children to secrecy. So Lucy has this weird emotional attachment to this lie.
Yeah.
And I think that no matter what, there's nothing you can do to a certain extent to relieve Lucy of that awkwardness.
Yeah.
It's pretty deep, and it's been there for a really long time. And just her living in a world where you know is what's going to, over time, I think, calibrate her to the fact that you know and be more comfortable. The only other advice I would have on that topic is, to the extent that she can stand to do it, having a one-on-one conversation where you say, look, I'm not going to pepper you with questions a lot, but I want to be present with you. I want to talk through it. I'm sure you're worried that, like, I know this now. But even the things you wrote in this letter, being able to share with her and saying, look, Mom, I admire that you did this.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it was you and not somebody else. I'm so glad you didn't let your teenage daughter hand me off to, these other families. I admire your sacrifice. I admire that you allowed me to just be your daughter so that I could have a normal life and not feel different than my peers or what. Just, I think giving her permission to see this as a positive thing that, and showing her that you're not wounded. Because I imagine as your parent, she's been afraid this was going to hurt you your whole life.
Yeah, and that things aren't going to change.
Right.
Moving forward.
We're the
like
same.
we're still,
right.
we still have a good relationship.
I would expect two gifts. I want a gift from my mother, which is you, and a gift from my grandmother. I expect two.
That's
dual
reasonable.
roles. That's the
it's
deal.
not asking too much.
I don't think it is for every holiday, including St. Patrick's Day.
I mean, hopefully their birthday isn't next to Christmas like Jim's.
Oh, yours is too. Yours is
just
worse than
awful.
mine.
Thank you for bringing that up.
It's so bad, Whitney. We don't talk enough about it on the show, but
I love my July birthday.
I just get screwed.
So does Myra.
People have it too good. Your birthday's good too. Yours is in April. Jacob and I are fucked. It's terrible.
Don't include me in this. I'm fine.
No, you're
Where's the Taylor
it's a
Rose?
union.
Jacob.
Why do you
Never
always
hear
cross
from
the
Jacob.
union lines? I try to bring you with me. Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Gather round,
I'm like the
kids.
writer's strike, and
It's
you're
now
like the
time
actors,
for
okay?
Dr.
You're
Jim
fine, but you need to
Jobin's
come with
latest
me on this.
Tale
Because if we do it
of
together, we can stand up on this. Whoa. Why don't we just punt to January? Let's just move both of them to January. I'll be January 1, and you'll be January, 24th? You're right there, aren't you? It's like right on Christmas.
Oh, like what's the date of my
Yeah.
the 18th?
It's 18th. Yeah, you're close enough that it's a problem. So I think we should both move
It's a
into
week.
January.
It's a week out.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible. Anyway, Sammy, my point is I expect a birthday card. So get it in before
And my
Thanksgiving.
birthday's so late in December. We would always be out of school on Christmas break during my birthday, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
get the in-school birthday stuff.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
It's just
I wouldn't
awful.
get. I wouldn't get a cake.
Well, I don't get it either because we usually get off for that week for Thanksgiving, and my birthday is always adjacent to Thanksgiving break.
Yep.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
I never get any well
Oh
wishes.
my God, who the hell cares?
Everybody.
Around, kids.
They should care.
It's now time
Thank you,
for
Jacob.
Dr.
It
Jim
is my time.
Jobin's latest
It's-
Tale
it is
of
a tale.
Woe.
Whoa. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about my wife has lost her attraction to me. You're listening
But are we going to read any letters?
Man, I'm just getting drilled today. They're all at
That
me.
was so good. That came out of nowhere.
God damn it. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ben Don, Malia, Richard Macy, Sunny Boy, University Jeff, Samantha Cone, Thunder, Cougar, Falcon, Scoop, Slurpee Kaye, Motherfucker, and Sandra McWaffle. And if you'd like to sponsor a show, become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. We have some trivia sent in from Myra. Thank you very much. Myra was on it this
Yes.
weekend. She knew I was going to be out of town, and she knew I was going to be coming back the day of recording, and then I wouldn't have any trivia lined up. So she jumped in. So thank you so much.
I believe Cody sent some in too.
Oh shit, that's right.
We've got some extra in
Okay.
the queue here.
Cody,
from Cody as
I got
well.
you next one.
Yep. Cody sent in 2.
I thought it might be time to see if you are all smarter than a 10-year-old.
Oh, no.
Here are
gonna be
all
great.
questions from a 5th grade / 10-year-old school curriculum.
I'm smarter
There are 12
than
questions,
fifth grade.
In this
4 for
country?
each break. Holy shit.
Are you
all right,
Jeff
cool.
Foxworthy?
Is it
loved
I hope
that
it's
show.
American 10-year-olds.
is it 10-year-olds in the U.S.?
That's gotta be.
I hope
Yeah.
so, because we're fucked if it's not.
Because, yeah, that's the only
Yeah,
shot
it's gonna be
we've got.
terrible. And regionally, still might be a problem.
In April 2010, where did a volcano erupt that caused hundreds of flights to be canceled?
Oh, it's Hawaii.
Iceland.
Should we?
Oh shit,
I've
it was
got-
Iceland.
Okay, well, I've got
It was that
multiple choice,
Sukalovic thing.
but I think we should be able to guess first.
I'll take a shot at Hawaii because I remember there being really cheap
Okay.
prices.
Oh,
in
there
Hawaii.
is. It is multiple choice.
It is,
Oh.
but I think if we go without multiple choice, we get 2 points.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
going with Hawaii.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm going Iceland.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I'm
Iceland.
also going Iceland.
Okay, because it is Iceland.
Yeah.
Let me just
There's
clarify.
always a volcano erupting
It is
in Hawaii.
Iceland.
God damn it!
Yeah.
It also happened in Hawaii. I thought.
What were the other choices? Was Hawaii a
Denmark,
choice?
Iceland,
Italy?
Norway, or Germany.
Shit, that would have really helped.
So
Yeah.
I'm taking away a point.
Oh god damn!
So Jacob,
Negative
Whitney, and
one.
I all have 2.
Plus 2.
Jim's at -1.
Ah shit!
What is the
It's
name?
tough but fair.
What is the name of the pigment found on all plants that causes them to be green?
Chlorophyll.
Chloroform. I said
Chloroform.
That's
Chloroform.
what I meant.
Whitney's
It's more
locked
about
in
your
on
dating
chloroform.
life.
I didn't like that.
Whitney's locked in on
I'm
chloroform.
gonna knock out all those plants with a rag.
First date. Does it smell like chloroform to you?
No points for Whitney.
I will go
I'll
with
wait for the
chlorophyll.
multiple.
Chlorophyll, more like borophyll. Am I right? This guy knows what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You at least have to read in the responses. and
Does
I
she
can
get
guess that.
-1 for saying the wrong thing?
I feel like only the
Mine
first
was
person
half
that
right.
says the answer should get the 2 points, by the way.
Then she should get Iceland,
Yeah.
and then I should.
I don't
also
disagree.
Not
Like,
be
yeah.
punished.
That's
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
All right, we're
Can
just
I
gonna
get
have to
half
play
a point for half the word?
Real game.
Well, the points don't matter anyway.
Okay.
All right, number 3. The name
Although that answer was a knockout.
the name hippopotamus comes from the Greek word meaning
Oh Jesus!
Jim Jobin. Because he's a fatty.
Hip. This is just mean now. It's just mean.
Wait,
see
read the
his legs.
I
question
feel
again.
like I've seen this. Hippopotamus.
Okay.
Hippo.
water horse,
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
water
Yeah.
mammal, water elephant,
No,
water pig.
it's water
I
horse.
think water horse
A.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go with the group. It is.
Yay!
All right.
I'm out of the negatives.
This is fun.
What is the name of the
We're all
pigment
smart
in the
as
human
10-year-olds.
body that determines hair and skin color?
Oh, melanin.
Melanin.
Melatonin.
Shit.
No.
No, I'm going with melanin.
No,
Melanin.
Melatonin's the sleepy pills.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
idiot.
Like chloroform.
Really?
Yeah, fuck you. This is where the friendship
You sure
ends.
about that?
Yeah, it's
You sure
melanin.
about that?
Melanin.
It is melanin.
Yeah, winners.
All right.
So wait, I have 2
That's
points
fun.
now, or I got
Oh
out
my
of the
gosh,
hole.
the points don't
I don't know where
No,
I'm
I
at.
think we're all losing.
I think I have 6.
I had 10.
All right, next question.
Chloroform.
Take it away.
Yay.
I know that one. I was like, oops.
All right. My wife lost attraction to me from Anonymous, not Jim. Hi, Pod Therapy. Longtime listener and Patreon supporter of the show.
Thank you.
Hey.
Your podcast and the stories your listeners have shared have, in the past couple of years, given me the courage to go to therapy.
Awesome.
Talk to my doctor about medication, and probably, best of all, start talking about mental health with my friends and family. Thank you so much. I feel stuck on an issue, similar to a writer in episode 282 and 283, but I'm on the other side. I am the partner that needed the wake-up call. I've always been overweight, and mental health issues pushed that to the limit during COVID. My wife is a wonderful person and did everything right, very similar to what you outlined in those episodes. She talked to me about my health and pushed me to go to therapy. She worked out with me, went on diet plans with me, etc. Even with all of that support, I still haven't been able to overcome my emotional eating for long periods of time and remain almost 300 pounds. So that is the context to my question. Feel free to cut that out or eliminate what you want to. After the first year or more of love and support from my wife, she one day told me a harsh truth, that she wasn't attracted to me anymore. She loved me, wanted to be with me, but didn't find me sexually attractive at my current weight. Again, her delivery was harsh, but not an ultimatum, just her truth. Side note, Jim's relationship needs Patreon bonus episode has really helped me frame attractiveness as a need and something I owe my partner, just like I owe them affection or quality time together. Definitely worth supporting the show to hear. Check it out at patreon.com/therapy. That was in the letter. It was not Jim making a plug. They were plugging.
As far as
I've
we
got
know.
the letter right here, and that
Yeah.
was not
Shut
in
up.
there.
At the
like, we
same
don't know
time,
that.
it's right there. At the same time, we talked about my mental health, and in that regard, I've come a long way in the past year. On my weight and my health, I'm working on it, but I'm still heavier than I want to be. One thing holding me back is my lack of self-confidence and self-esteem. I can't let go of what she said. I'm not holding it against her. I'm holding it against myself. At first, it felt motivating, but that only lasted a few weeks. Now, I'm working on internal motivation and making changes for myself. But as you all know, changing lifelong habits is difficult. Unfortunately, that idea of being unattractive to my own partner is intrusive and depressing. Of course, when I feel uncomfortable or depressed, I turn to food and become withdrawn from my relationship. So it's been a terrible cycle. What can I do to let go of her specific words so that I can move on? It doesn't feel helpful. Thinking about it just makes me angry or depressed. Or should I let go of her words? Maybe there's a benefit to keeping it on, or should I let go of her words? Maybe there's a benefit to keeping it on the forefront of my mind while I try to change and reframing it somehow. Any advice for building and maintaining my self-esteem? Thank you for everything. Anonymous.
That's hard.
That is a tough one.
I mean, the last question, I think you're the only one who knows that. Is that have those words been a motivating factor for you?
Doesn't sound like they are right now.
Yeah.
I've thought the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Kind of
that's the
answering
thing.
your own question with that one.
Yeah, so I think the thing with motivation, because I've talked a lot about this with my mental fit.
I feel like this is your wheelhouse when
Yeah,
I was listening.
I feel like I'm going to step up to the plate on this one. So I think with this, motivation is always a tough one because I've had this conversation many times with many people. And the thing is with motivation, if you want somebody to change their behavior quickly, fear is the best way to do it. But if you want long-term change, fear doesn't last. And I think that's kind of where you're at with this, is you heard some pretty harsh truths from your significant other, and that motivated you because there was probably some fear involved in that. Oh shit, I could lose her. I need to do something.
Right.
But as you discovered, it doesn't last. So the way that the analogy I always like to use is it's the difference between running because you're being chased versus running because you have someplace you need to get to.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of that external motivation. If you're running because you're being chased, that's only going to work until you rationalize the fear. So as soon as you think like, oh, I've got a big enough lead, this thing's not going to get me, or I don't see it anymore, then you're going to stop running. As opposed to running because you have someplace you want to go, or running because you enjoy running, then it doesn't matter what's behind you. You do it because that's kind of part of the process. So a big part of motivation when it comes to, exercise and eating is changing that motivation from fear-based motivation into what is it that you want instead. And I do think that, this idea of, keep her words, I don't think you need to necessarily change that. And maybe that's a good motivator to start with. But also, what do you want for you out of this? Because at the end of the day, I mean, I'll be Johnny Raincloud here. Worst case scenario, what happens if, let's say you lose this weight and you get in the best shape of your life and she's still not sexually attracted to you? It's a possibility, and it's unfortunate, but that is a possibility. So what do you get out of this? And I think that's probably the hardest thing because you don't see that right away. Like when you're eating well and you're exercising, we don't get results right away. It takes a long time. So you kind of have to force yourself to stick to a behavior, even though you're getting absolutely nothing out of it. And that's why so few people can actually stick to a plan.
Yeah.
So.
The self-esteem aspect is a really common issue I hear from clients is how do I build up my self-esteem? How do I keep a positive mindset about myself, especially if you've struggled with that? And definitely being overweight can cause that. That's very common. And especially hearing your wife share something that can be hurtful, even though it is her truth. And I love the way you framed that.
You
It
handled
sounds
that
like,
so well.
I
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
woo, well done. Like,
Yeah, it still hurts.
yeah, it still hurts,
Yeah.
but absolutely you're holding that to like a point of that's what she thinks, and you can't change that right now. You're just working on yourself. As far as building your self-esteem, I mean, I would focus on things that you do feel confident in. What are areas of your life, if there are any, hopefully there are, but what are those areas that you do feel confident in? Is there like your work? Do you have a hobby? What are those small areas? And trying to focus on some of those and finding your value in some of those areas, just practicing that rather than, oh, there's all these areas I suck at and I'm just terrible at A, B, C, D, and E, even though you're good at F, but the rest, it's all bad too. But I just try and focus on the areas that you're good at, and that'll be a good jumping off point. I usually start there, but
You got to
I don't
start
know.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
You
thoughts,
can't just
Jen?
keep staring
Yeah.
at the problem.
And honestly, if you're talking about building confidence,
Yeah.
and you're wanting to lose weight and you want to like exercise, you can do both of those. Like,
Right.
and this is where if you get to a gym and you start doing any kind of like resistance training, bring a notebook with you, like, and write down what you're doing and actually have a written out plan, track what you're doing, and you'll see that you're going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see like, oh, I remember, like the first time I was able to deadlift 315 pounds, and that was a significant
bragging.
number. It's a humble brag. That's a significant number because like 315 is 3 45-pound plates on each side of the bar.
Okay.
Okay. So it's significant because you can look at the bar and you can see it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why that number means something. But like the first time I was able to do that, it's just, wow, like, holy shit, I did it. And you just feel like this huge sense of accomplishment, but you have to constantly work towards that, and you have to kind of set some goals. And that's what kind of gets you through it, because you don't notice things like losing weight as easily.
Right.
Because
Yes.
here's the other thing about weight too, is you need to remember that weight, there's so many different factors, and weight is one number out of an entire
Gosh, yeah.
human system.
Do you do
Right.
that body composition thing when you start working with people? I don't know what it's called. I can't
yeah.
remember, but it's like where that measures your like body fat percentage or muscle percentage or all
Yeah,
of that
bone
stuff.
density, all of that stuff. Yeah, we've got a scanner at the gym.
Yeah, a
that,
scanner.
that we can use. I've only used it like once or twice, and
Okay.
that can be helpful. And that's something I always like to remind people too. Like if you're stepping on a scale, man, that can be dangerous because people
You could
will do
fall.
that.
Depends on the scale.
Sometimes people will do that on like a daily basis. They weigh themselves every day, which is a lot like checking your 401k every day. And like
Perfectly healthy and reasonable.
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe once a week. You kind of have to find something that works for you. If you want to, if that's important to you, check it maybe once a week, but you have to have other things that you're measuring progress by,
Yeah.
because there's so many things that affect weight, as far as like females, hormones,
Sure.
that's going to
Oh,
affect
yeah.
your weight.
Yeah.
Water weight, how much you're drinking affects your weight, and like all of these different things factor into that. And sometimes you put too much emphasis on how hard gravity is pulling on you,
Sure.
as opposed to all of these other things that can measure progress. So I would just throw that out there, just kind of be careful, but set some goals for yourself, and then kind of some landmarks. What are some things that will tell you you're on your way? And then it's no longer about, I need to make myself attractive for so-and-so.
Right.
It's now become personal for you because it's important to you. I want to be able to run a mile in under 8 minutes, or whatever that is, whatever your goal is, or I want to be able to bike so many miles, or I want to be able to lift so much. Have some of these goals in place so that you can start building that confidence.
Right. So, Anonymous, I want to kind of approach your problem from a little bit of a different lens. So, one of the most valuable ways I've personally found to deal with my relationship with food has been for me to start seeing it similarly, maybe not diagnostically, but similarly to the way addiction works. You talk about that in your letter where you say, I emotionally overeat. And a lot of little points you make in your letter really remind me of A, myself, but B, how the relationship works with drugs and alcohol or self-medicating with other types of sort of coping behaviors, in this case, food. And fundamentally, what we're doing is we're addressing negative emotions, boredom, self-confidence issues, all the things that plague us as human beings that are conscious. We're trying to make those feels go away through the ritual, habit, and ultimately various levels of intoxication of the substance, in this case, the food. And that's something I really would encourage us to take a deeper look at. You talk about how, and Nick talked about this a second ago, the fear versus motivation thing. Well, this is another part to this, because reflecting on my wife's not attracted to me, I'm a big fat piece of shit, oh my God, I need to get out there and do something about this. When am I going to do something about this? You realize, oh, that's not motivating me. I'm not doing better. In fact, I'm beating myself up. I don't feel good about myself. And when I am at that low point, that emotional brokenness, what do? Oh, I use my drug. I'll be damned. I go right back to it. And this is why in addictions treatment, one of the first things that we discard in the treatment is shame. We don't want shame and guilt. Shame and guilt are sledgehammers. You can't build things with them. You can break things with them. And there's a time and a place where we want to break through denial with them. And sometimes we need shame and guilt as this cold water wake-up call that our eyes pop open and we go, oh my gosh, there are real consequences for my unchecked relationship with the substance, in this case, food. That's the wake-up call you got from your spouse. But then we don't want you using that tool, because that tool is not how we're going to build from there. Anytime we indulge in shame and guilt, we end up going back to our old coping behavior, in this case, overeating. And this is something that we have to deal with in rehab a lot, because a lot of people, they think they're going to somehow motivate themselves by staring into the well of pain that brought them to rehab in the first place. And no, we very quickly leave that at the door, and we start talking about what Nick was talking about, finding their why, building toward motivation, incremental baby steps. Another part of this that I think resembles addiction that I really relate to again with a relationship to food problem, is when you remove somebody's drug of choice, they do not instantaneously feel better.
No,
they do not become
worse.
a better person. Yeah, they feel worse, not just physically, as they all do temporarily, but emotionally for an enduring amount of time. When you just remove the thing that they were using as an emotional crutch and has taken up a lot of space in their time economy, their brain is wired to pursue it. It's how they celebrate wins. It's how they grieve losses. It's how they socialize with others. Food shows up in everything we do, just the way alcohol does for an alcoholic. And when we remove that from them, they're pissed in the beginning because nothing's better. And that's what's different about this. Whenever you start to address your relationship with food and you take it away, a lot of people, tell these stories about like, oh yeah, like changed my relationship with food and like everything got better. So running faster, feeling better, breathing deeper.
So easy.
My blood pressure was gone. My headaches were gone. My joints felt fucking great. And like they tell these victory stories in all the infomercials, and it makes you feel like you're even worse piece of shit. Because whenever I do successful, like I remember I spent like 2 months losing weight, and I'd successfully lost a significant amount of weight. I think I had lost like 15 pounds in 2 months. And I remember getting to the end of that and being like, cool. Like I can see the number change. I can see it in the mirror. Great, I guess. But I didn't feel like all the things that I thought it would feel like, right? And this is something that addicts typically describe. And we talk about this phase of recovery that we often refer to as the wall, where they've been sober for a while, they hit this wall, and then they look at us in rehab and they go, so like if this is what sobriety feels like, I don't know.
Kind of sucks.
I gotta take it or leave it. Like I kind of liked being high. That was kind of cool too. So you lose that motivation because you don't reap rewards instantaneously just because you've removed your drug of choice.
So here's yes, you're 100% right. And I guess to speak to you and the writer, because I think part of the problem is from this idea of completely eliminating things. Like,
right.
So for example, eating to deal with your emotions, that pleasurable eating, People feel like, eating as a coping mechanism, I need to remove that. Well, no, I don't think you need to remove it. I think you need to cut down.
You need to address the relationship.
I think you need to address the relationship. But I guess, again, I think where people run into problems is they create a situation that is unsustainable. They create a pattern of behavior that is completely unsustainable. I don't want you, writer, to live the rest of your life never being able to eat food for pleasure.
Sure.
And I think, this is where, I've talked about this on the podcast before. The way I look at food is there's food for fuel and food for pleasure. And both are important. But the problem is that you have to decrease one and increase the other. So to kind of use an analogy, if we had a jar and we had red marbles and green marbles, and red marbles are eating for pleasure, and the green marbles are eating for fuel. The way that your jar looks right now, as you fill it during the day, is it's all red marbles.
Sure.
Most likely.
Yeah, we just eat for pleasure or to cope with
exactly.
pain or boredom, discouragement.
Yep, all of that. So throw in a red marble, throw in another red marble, throw in another red marble. And I think people have the idea that, well, you just dump it out and you just fill it with green.
Right.
Well, no, you don't. You slowly take a red marble out and replace it with a green one.
Okay.
So it's going to look like 99 red marbles and 1 green one.
Yes.
And then tomorrow it's going to look like 98 red marbles and 2 green ones. And it's a slow process, but the way to do it is to put the green ones in first. Right? So you I know I need to eat some protein. I know I need some vegetables. I know I'm not drinking enough water. I'm going to do those first. So if you can throw in as many of the green marbles as you can in the beginning, then you have less to fill with the red. Right?
This is very different, I think, than other process addictions.
Absolutely. Because
overeating has always been a tricky one.
If it's gambling, we cannot gamble.
You can't put in positive. Exactly. We can just abstain from gambling completely. Yeah. When we're dealing with sex addictions, same concept. We want people to have a healthy relationship to sex, and we understand this can be part of their life. We're not trying to remove it entirely. But this is such an interesting one, I think, because it is in that nether region between a process and a chemical addiction, because there is a chemical abstraction that's happening in the body.
Absolutely.
And sugars and all these other wonderful things they're very much mood-changing agents, right? And yet it is also a process addiction because it is a behavior, a compulsion. And so it's really difficult to break. And honestly, I believe it's the greatest addiction in America today, but we don't always do a good job of talking about it that way for many, many reasons. But I know for me, as I read this letter, that really related to me because we think about the marbles analogy. I love your advice of this, unlike other addictions, you can actually start with a positive version of it, right? You can't be like, drink all the green ball alcohol first, and then, they'll have less room for the red ball alcohol. Like, no, food works like this though, because you can nourish yourself first, and that will decrease space that the red balls could have taken. But then the other thing is beginning to do, I think, that addiction analysis, to really sit down and start doing that analysis of yourself. When do I reach for the red marbles? Yeah. When do those show up in my life? What am I feeling when those arrive in my life?
And honestly, I think a lot of it just has to do with awareness.
That's a big first step.
So one of my clients that I'm working with, that's one of the big things that we talk about on a regular basis when we meet online, is we really just talk about his level of awareness of when he's eating, what is he feeling, what kind of emotions is he dealing with? Right. What kind of mental space is he in?
What are the triggers?
And we just start identifying. And I don't even have him stop the behavior yet.
Right. Just broaden
let's
awareness.
just observe.
That's it.
Let's just watch. Yep. Let's just observe. Let's just take some notes about what's happening. And then from that point, then we can start talking about identifying it earlier on, because again, we use the same analogy in addictions where we kind of talk about this snowball, like if I'm going to stop a snowball as it's going down a mountain, I'm going to stop it up at the top when it's the size of a basketball, as opposed to down at the bottom when it's the size of a minivan. If I try to get in front of that, I'm just going to get run over. So, but to do that, we have to start and kind of work backwards and kind of figure out these small things.
Right.
And like, oh, you know what? I noticed I got off track this morning because I woke up late. And then
Apparently
I was
that was a
rushed
trigger
this
for me.
morning.
Yep.
And then when I was rushed, then I was stressed when I was at work. And then when I was
Right.
stressed at work, and then I had a bad interaction with my boss. And then
Right.
came time for lunch. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm going to Burger
And that's
King.
a huge piece of it. So one of the pieces of advice I'm going to get to with the writer is I'd really like you to look into Overeaters Anonymous. And it's something that we don't talk about, but it's absolutely one of the major 12-step fellowships. It follows the same pathway as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. But this concept of self-awareness, group support, starting to break open this pattern of tracking the snowball and realizing, whoa, this started way up here. Why didn't I go for my morning walk this morning, man? I told myself I was really going to do that. I was going to get a mile in and just do that. Well, I didn't do it because I was up late last night. And I woke up today and my body was against me and my mind was against me. And then we beat ourselves up. I'm such a fucking failure. You know, Nick can wake up at the crack of dawn and just go fucking, move enough boulders to build the goddamn pyramids. But like, I can't take a walk in my flip flops in the morning and listen to a fucking podcast because I didn't wake up, with enough energy. What kind of piece of shit am I? And then it's like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to eat a goddamn bowl of Fruity Pebbles. It's like, fuck. And that's the thing is like, it's this self-sabotage mentality that a lot of addicted people get into where they're like, oh, well, I had a beer. I fucked up my sobriety. Fuck it, I'm going to eat the entire goddamn liquor cabinet. I'm just going to do it all because I'm a piece of shit. I don't deserve any better. And I'm just going to get lost in it. And there's this self-sabotage complex that happens. And that's why I just really would encourage the writer to deepen your self-awareness of your relationship with food, taking a step back and seeing this perhaps through the lens of dependency, compulsion, maybe even addiction. Why? That relieves one of shame. When Nick and I run rehabs and we're talking to people about this, we're not saying, you're a piece of shit alcoholic, and you're going to destroy your family, you're going to kill yourself, you're a piece of shit, you're here because you're a piece of shit.
I've heard Nick do that.
He does that, but he usually just says it to family and
I just do
friends.
that to you guys.
Yeah, he just shouts it to us in the parking lot every time we
Because
pull
you
up.
are pieces of shit.
Yeah, he needs to let us know. The boot camp. We signed up for the boot camp. This is how we mental fit. I mean, I signed up on the app, and first message I got was, "Hey, you piece of shit."
By the way, none of that's true.
That's
I don't do
exactly
that.
what happened. That's what I remember. That was in my Christmas card. But we don't do
At
that
least
in
Nick
rehabs.
doesn't drop bags of fake drugs in front of drug addicts.
Oh, who would do that, Whitney? So I thought we agreed never to bring that up. So
No, I didn't agree to that.
I don't remember any of that. But I think the point I was making was in rehabs, we encourage people and we say, hey, let's take a step back and let's see this pattern of behavior that always felt like it was under your control. You did it despite people begging you not to. You did it in ways that were illegal, ways that were harmful. Even though that all felt like it was very consciously under your control, we're going to help you take a step back and embrace the medical model of understanding your relationship to this drug and this compulsive behavior as beyond your ability to control. And that's why you need help for it.
And a lot of my folks will like keep in contact with me and say like, I had a bad day. I fucked up. And it's like, yeah, and you're going to again.
Yep.
You're going to do it again. Like it, and I tell people all the time, we're not trying to win every battle.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Not
We're trying,
but when.
yeah, we're trying to win the war.
Yeah.
All right. There's several losses that you're going to take, but the best thing we can do is just look at that and say, okay, well, what did I learn?
Right.
I learned for every time something doesn't work, I should walk away with one thing I've learned from it.
Right.
Like, oh, I've learned that when I don't pack a lunch, that leaves me vulnerable to making bad choices.
Exactly.
Right. So that's a
the
learning
snowball,
experience.
the trigger
right?
analysis.
Yeah.
One of the things that has really helped me do better in my life, writer, and a little piece of advice I'll give you. And again, I bought the big book for Overeaters Anonymous. It's something I come back to a lot. I don't talk about it a lot on the show. But and I've been to the fellowship and it's been really helpful over the years. But one thing that really has helped me is deepening my understanding of emotional eating. And that rule has really it served me really well because there's a lot of times when I'll just be frustrated, I'll feel down about myself, I'll feel defeated, I'll just get in my head about whatever my struggle is for that week or what's on my mind. And I'll be like, you know what, I'm going to take a drive. I'm just going to go get a coffee. I'm going to go get coffee at Starbucks, right? And then that same parking lot, there'll be like a fast food thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll just be like getting in the line at the Starbucks. And the whole time, my brain is buzzing, thinking about this fast food. And I'm not fucking hungry. Mm-hmm. Nothing in my body is saying, oh man, I really need some fuel right now. I need some green marbles. Like, nope, nothing in my body wants that food, doesn't give a fuck. The only part of me that wants it is my emotions. And it's so weird because my emotions want it for two reasons. Partly my emotions are saying, dude, you're having such a bad day. Like, it would be so nice just to like zone the fuck out and gobble down this bag of food. And the second emotion is, you're a piece of shit anyway. So what are you trying to do? What are you trying to fucking protect yourself from? Like, you think you're doing yourself a favor by not buying 3 fucking Whoppers? You're going to go home and still be fat. So why don't you just go ahead and feel better for 15 minutes, zone out, let all that sugar pump through your brain and just hit like this weird coma for 30 seconds and just feel some bliss for a moment. Listen to a podcast and enjoy yourself.
See, it's funny because as you're talking about this, I used to do this.
Fucking junkie logic.
I used to do this all the time.
All I know is Jim's talked me into going by Burger King.
And I was like,
I used to do this in group at the rehab where I would have a volunteer, and it would usually be somebody that I knew very well, one of the clients that I knew well enough where I knew all their little, how their addiction works. And they would sit in a chair, and I would sit behind them and kind of like lean over their shoulder, kind of whispering in their ear. And I say, okay, you're going to be you, and I'm going to be your addiction.
Oh, yeah. I remember this bit.
And so, and I would kind of make the point, like, if I just say, hey, let's go get high, how would you react to that? They'd be like, well, no.
Yeah.
No,
thanks.
I'm not going to do that. Right? And your addiction knows that.
Right.
So it's not going to say that.
It doesn't say that.
Instead,
let's go to our dealer's house.
No. Instead, it will say something like, remember that time that you said that to your mom?
Right, yeah. Remember that time
really
you
hurtful?
stole the family
remember
pearls
that time
and sold
that you
them?
did this?
Yeah.
Oh, that was terrible. Oh, how do you feel about that? Do you feel, and then like, let's go for a drive.
Yeah.
Let's go for Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
No, don't go to that Starbucks. Let's go over to this one over here.
You know what? Why don't you drive past the Burger King and just see if they're running that deal? Do they have the window decals up? Are they doing the 2 for $5?
And
that's a pretty good deal.
It's that thought process that supports this whole thing. And so I guess the issue that I was kind of the point that I was getting to with this is that as you get further on, as I was talking about, like in substance use, in recovery, the further you get in recovery, the greater the lengths that your addiction has to go to. To actually kind of work around this. Right. Because back in the day, it used to be able to just say, hey, let's go get high. And that was enough. No. But now, you've had a month clean. So now it's got to jump through all these hoops. Well, guess what? When you've got 6 months clean, it's got to jump through even more hoops. Right. And so it's still there. Mm-hmm. You're just making it work harder. Yeah. So it's kind of a similar thing, I guess you could say, to like the eating. But I guess the last thing for the writer that I want to say on this, because we have focused a lot on the eating and the weight and all that stuff, but really, again, to kind of go back to the self-esteem piece, I think a lot of this has to do with, number one, let's fine if you want to remember what your wife said. Obviously, it doesn't matter whether or not you want to remember it. You're going to. It was hurtful. Yeah, it was impactful.
It's there.
It's not going away. Mm-hmm. But instead of spending time focusing on that, let's spend some time focusing on, what do you want? Mm-hmm. What do you want for yourself? And then let's create some goals, and then let's create some landmarks along the way. Yeah. All right. So if we're talking about what we want to accomplish in 6 months, that's too far away. Mm-hmm. Let's set that, but then what would be the first indicator to you that you're making progress? Yeah. What would be the first small thing that you would see? Very, very small. And then let's create that as a landmark. And then we continue to build.
In a way, there is a method to that to help define it. Because like when you're recovering from alcohol, you know what relapse is. You drank alcohol. It's black and white. Like we know the day you did it, right? Same thing with narcotics. Like you ingested the narcotic, you've relapsed, right? So in Overeaters Anonymous, we have the circles, which Sex Addicts Anonymous also uses, that is sort of zones. So you have like the red zone, the yellow zone, and the green zone. So green zone behaviors are things you would like to do more of because they're recovery focused and you thrive on that. It's great for you. Taking a walk, seeing family, the good things. The yellow zone are things that are not a relapse, but are the snowball. You're on the way to relapse. Whenever you're cruising through the parking lots, driving past the fast food places, staring at them, you haven't done anything bad yet, but you're on the doorstep, right? You're flirting with danger. And then the red zone is how you define what relapse is, which needs work, right? And there's a whole pattern to figure that out because is it any bite of food? That's not correct. but maybe it's your definition of emotional eating or outside of these parameters or these types of food. This is what constitutes a relapse for me. And so this goes back to your point of incremental baby step progress and defining very small milestones that are quite achievable. That pattern of green, yellow, and red behaviors, I think, helps identify that a little bit closer. That way you can know baby steps in the right direction, these are in the green box. Baby steps in the dangerous direction are yellow. And then this is how I'm defining things that I feel are outside of what I'm describing as my recovery, or if you're not into the OA logic, just things that are no longer healthful.
And that's actually similar to recovery from substance use, because that's why I've never used relapse as a single event.
Right.
Because you relapse when you use alcohol. Well, relapse is a process. So on a scale from 0 to 10, that's 10.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. But there was a 1.
Yeah.
There was a 2. There was a 3. The problem is that people don't recognize them.
Right.
So you don't recognize it until you get to 9 or 10. And at that point, it's too late.
Right.
Yeah.
I know we've been on this for a minute, but the last thing I just wanted to throw in there that can be helpful when you're having those moments of just beating yourself up and feeling all the shame, and it's what you feel like you deserve, and then that leads to the self-sabotage because you're like, well, I'm already here and I'm already a piece of shit, so I'll just do this and I'm just validating what I already think. Here we go. Just reminding you to be kind to yourself, because I think when we get to that point, we're very aware we're in that. That's like a highly emotional state.
Right.
Like the subtle emotions are before that, right? Maybe little thoughts here or there, like Nick was explaining. But like where Jim got to, it's like we're very aware when we get there. I think we've all been in a space in some part of our life where it's just like beating yourself up about a thought or an action we've had or done. But what I try and do when I get in that space, because I do think that's somewhat normal in different aspects of our lives, is I recognize that and tell myself, no, you are a beautiful person. You are worthy of love. Just being kind to yourself.
Yes.
And it's like purposefully shifting that dialogue from, I'm unattractive because my wife said so. Instead, I can be attractive. I'm working towards that. I am worthy of these things.
I'm still lovable.
I'm still lovable.
I
think
loved.
that helps calm down that emotional state, which hopefully will result in making somewhat better choices, at least some of the time. Sometime you might still give in and go do it. Sure. But, some of the time that has helped me sort of calm down from that heightened emotional state and just make a better choice in that moment some of the time. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Being kind to yourself, I think, is very important, because there's no one on earth has said meaner things about me than myself while golfing.
Yeah, for Nick, it's golf.
So you can't
Jim
hit a
sounds
green
like it's
from
food.
120 yards out, you piece of fucking shit. This
You
is why
tried
no
all
one
this
will
stuff.
ever love you.
Yeah, that's what Laura tells me. Is the reason. She's
why
pissed
she
at
doesn't
you.
love him.
Yeah, yeah.
It's weird that Laura said all those things. You've seen him try to hit the green from 120 yards.
Three putt, 3 greens, 3 putt, 3 times.
Yeah. I remember she texted me when you guys were at Taos. She's like, I'm not even going to put anything on his back. I hope he burns.
Yeah, She's like, I'm spraying
I
it
hope
into
he
the air.
That's right. I'm spraying it in the air.
Yeah, got it.
I sneezed on his back. It isn't even sunscreen.
It all makes sense now.
Ryder, you can't build things with shame and guilt, but they're good for breaking through, and that was accomplished. But I think we've all tried to give you some love, some advice. We love that you're listening to the show. I love that you're seeing a therapist. I love that you're working on yourself. And it's a journey, my friend. You are not the only one in that boat. This is one of the greatest struggles, I think, in America and modern society. Yeah. It's something a lot of people feel behind the ball on.
Speaking of capitalism, they spend a lot of money trying to start that rabbit hole and then keep you in that cycle.
It is 2 types of addiction at once. So hang in there, friend, and keep the faith, because hopefully things will get better. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about hiding therapeutic endeavors. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ben Dunn, Malia, Richard Macy, Sunny Boy, University Jeff, Samantha Cone, Thunder Cougar, Falcon Scoop, Slurpee Kaye Motherfucker, and Sandra McWaffle. Would you like to sponsor the show? Become a Patreon at a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy.
Dude, this water has electrolytes.
Dude.
That's what plants crave.
That's what plants crave. I thought that turned like electrolytes.
What is the capital city of New Zealand?
Kids know this? Fuck that. Kids don't know this.
Yeah, we can't. I'm going to have to read the
I think
because I see the.
Yeah,
multiple
you
choice
have all the
answers.
answers.
Yeah.
I think is it
He's going for the
Auckland?
2. Ooh, I bet it is. But I'm going to wait and
do
hear
not
the...
know this answer. Even 10-year-old Australians probably don't know this answer.
Well,
This is in
It's
Australia.
New Zealand.
Yeah, I know it's like nearby or something.
It's
I
near
don't.
Australia.
I assume there's no children in New
Nice
Zealand.
save.
I assume they're in
Nice save,
Australia.
Jim.
Yeah, it's on the same planet.
He's got us there.
Queenstown,
Okay.
Wellington, Christchurch, Auckland.
Oh, it's Christchurch.
That's what
There
I
was a
was
shooting
thinking.
there. That's the only reason
I was going
know
to say
that.
Christchurch once I
Yeah.
heard that.
Christchurch is. I'm going to go with Auckland though.
I'm sticking with Auckland.
Okay, I'm going Christchurch with Jim.
Wellington.
Shit.
Damn it.
It was fancy corn
We're all
dog.
We
stupid.
should have all picked one.
Damn it.
Who was the first man to walk on the moon?
Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm going to go with Neil Armstrong.
if you
as well.
believe in that kind of thing.
We're all correct. What kind of food is pawpaw?
How's that
potato.
spelled?
P-A-W-P-A-W.
It's probably potato based.
Is it a
Vegetable, dairy, fruit, or meat?
It's vegetable.
fruit?
Fruit is what I was going to say.
Oh shit! It is. Yeah,
Jim's already locked it on
it's
vegetable.
from the Bare Necessities song in the Jungle Book.
Really?
It's the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. Remember, whenever he's singing about different things. It's the part where he's
Oh,
not
he's,
rhyming.
like,
It says,
pointing out
yes,
stuff
or
and grabbing stuff.
paw, or a
he
prickly
does.
pear.
He
Remember when he's holding it on
does.
his
I
nail?
forgot
It's a
that.
fruit. I know this
Okay.
because of Disney sing
and yet Jim's
This is
answer
like-
is vegetable.
No, I'm going with fruit now.
This is
I'm
like
gonna-
Slumdog Millionaire for
Yeah,
Jim
That's
right
how I
now.
find most of my answers.
Instead of going along with Jim, I'm going to say fruit.
I said fruit.
You said vegetable.
I came at it backwards. I didn't
clearly
lock
said
in my
vegetable.
answer.
We got 3
Regis
fruits and
Philbin
one
would have let me
vegetable.
change my
3
answer.
fruits, 1 vegetable.
God
It is a
bless him.
fruit.
There you
Yay.
go. 3 of us got it right.
All right.
Wait a second.
What color are sapphires most commonly?
Blue.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm going to say blue.
I only
I
know
feel
that
like that
because
might
of
be wrong.
Zelda Tears of the
Might be
Kingdom.
clear, but I'm going to say blue.
yeah, me too. That's how I know
Sapphires
it.
are blue.
That's how
because
I know
you need
sapphires
them
blue.
They're also cold.
Okay.
It's also
in
a
the-
strip
in the
club.
game.
And their
it's
neon,
blue.
and their sign is blue.
Yes.
It's a
Thank you,
really
Las
big
Vegas.
strip
So
club.
a really big one. It is blue.
Yay.
There you go. I think it's the biggest strip club in North America.
Damn.
Is it?
Square
Really?
footage wise, yeah.
Wow.
They always have people trying to get you to come in. Like if you walk down Fremont Street, they're like, Sapphire, just get in our limousine
Oh,
over
yeah.
here. I'm like,
Oh, they'll haul you across town.
yeah, they'll take you anywhere.
Did I
Is that
win?
it?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
So are we smarter than 5th graders or what?
I think we're doing a pretty good job.
yeah.
you thought pawpaw was a vegetable. So
I
no,
know.
you're not.
That was my grandpa.
Yeah, that's right. My papa. My papa
Was a
was
vegetable?
also. I also called my grandpa Papa. What'd you call your grandpa, Nick?
Grandpa.
Oh, really? Both of them?
Yeah.
Just call them both. They're indistinguishable. They're both just grandpa.
Yeah.
Or did you call him like Grandpa Bob or something like that? Did you have like a.
Yeah, I would say, Grandpa Dale or
Okay.
Grandpa Daryl.
Okay. Dale and Daryl. What about you, Jacob?
Granddaddy.
Both of them granddaddy?
Oh.
I only knew one.
Okay.
One
and it
died
was just
before I was born,
granddaddy. Yep. So I had a Gramps and a Pawpaw. So Whitney apparently also had a Pawpaw, but she's peeing right now. She's taking a pee-pee. So
Or she's
no
pooping.
Pawpaw.
We don't know.
You know what? You're right. I
might
don't
be pooping.
know. Yeah. Let's assume she is.
She might be doing
Let's
both.
break the stigma. It's okay to poop. It's okay.
Everybody poops.
Everybody poops.
Is that on the list?
Sadly. If it isn't, it will be.
Sometimes. Hiding therapeutic endeavors from Pete. Hello, long-time listener, first-time caller here. I was hoping you guys could give some advice on an unconventional issue. I've been recently struggling in a variety of realms, but been managing them well on my own. However, keeping one's head above water and working to move past issues and get better are different things entirely, I think. There's a number of options. One is private therapy, which, while cheaper here in the United Kingdom than the States, has to be paid for out of pocket. As to my knowledge, no private insurances cover it, and the National Health Service is, well, the National Health Service. The other option is a local free support group for men who struggle. If you feel like plugging it for any UK listeners, it's called Andy's Man Club. They're all over the UK. The issue overall is that going to either of these would be noticed by my partner, who I don't want to know of my struggles, and whilst the private therapy would allow me to schedule when they're not about, like at work and stuff, obviously it comes with a not insignificant cost and may be easily noticed. The support group, my schedule, and my partners would mean I maybe go once every 2 or 3 months, but it would be free. I was wondering if you have any ways I could navigate this and if there's any ideas you have for this kind of dance. Thanks, Impeded Pete.
Okay, so the first thing that we're not going to overlook and we're going to have to address is I'm just kind of wondering why you would want to keep it quiet.
Oh, I 100% get that. I 100% get that. Well, go on. Go with what you're saying.
No, go ahead.
I
Why would
get
you
it.
answer this question?
Yeah, I
then, Jim?
100% get that. So I've been to therapy, and that's not something that at the time in my life I was like, can't wait to tell everybody in my family about. I had a struggle that had gotten out of hand for me. I needed some support on that.
But your wife, you wouldn't want her to know about that?
There's a lot of times people do not.
No, I get that. I understand why. I mean, I understand that it happens.
Yeah.
But I guess
You would still ask them why.
I'm still curious. I
That's
still want to
fine.
know what is the thing that we're afraid of. What's the big resistance against
That's
letting
fine.
your spouse know
Well, the
what's going on?
therapist is going to want to explore that, as should be discussed. But let's defer to the writer. I mean, if the writer says, I don't want my spouse to know, now what? I want to normalize that.
I
do
refuse
think
to
that's a
go
normal
on
thing.
with the question
Okay.
until we have an answer to. Yes, I know.
Okay.
Of course, we're going to go.
Send
on
them a
with the question.
text.
All right, but I feel like my due diligence in this job is I want to kind of question the writer a little bit and just say, hey, this is something to think about.
Right.
And if it's not something you've already thought about, but because I mean, it might be nice to have that added support.
Well, but I think so. Okay, just the reason I don't take issue with it, but the reason I want to normalize the writer too, and I agree with you 100%. But I want to normalize it because I think in my practice and in my life, and also the support groups I've been to and things I've done, there are a lot of men, especially, who are hiding it. That they'll never go to therapy because. Not because they're against therapy. A lot of them are out there thinking, this probably really helped me. I probably should do this. But they are terrified to get caught doing it.
Sure.
And this is why, I mean, in part, this show has for years been male voices advocating for therapy and, trying to normalize
and
this.
we'll be again soon. We need to talk to you.
Get rid of
later,
Whitney. Yeah, I'm going to kick this chick out of here. She's
I won't
ruining
be
the
here
dude
next
vibe.
week, so that's your chance.
That's our dude time.
You won't? Why haven't we talked about that already?
Yeah, well, it's weird that it never came
Where are
up.
you going?
You're going to burn down
I gotta
another
keep
place?
reminding you guys.
Watch out, Florida. Hide your children. No, but this is something that I think a lot of men struggle with, that even if they want therapy as the writer does, even if they're looking for it and they think it would be helpful, there is, I think, a fear, and we're trying to normalize that, and I think we're trying to help them understand it's not bad to go do this. And we've talked about how even in dating websites, they talk about how it's very attractive to find out that somebody's willing to go get help, but it inherently requires an explanation.
Sure.
So if you have a partner and you feel like, okay, I'm struggling with something, I need to go to therapy. You go to your partner and say, hey, you're going to see a bill for a private therapist on our bank account. It's something I'm going to be doing. They are not going to say, oh, okay. Thanks for telling me, babe. So what do you want for breakfast? They're going to say, oh, are you okay? What's wrong? There's any number of reasons why the patient in that situation would not want that question asked.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm considering leaving you.
Yeah, no,
I don't. Oops, can't tell you that. I'm addicted to online gambling. Oops, I can't tell you that.
There may be some confusion. I'm not unaware of reasons why.
I'm just trying to normalize that perspective.
Sure.
While also encouraging, because what I hear you saying to the writer is, hey, look, I want to be a voice that encourages you not to be afraid to talk about this. That's the whole damn thesis of our show. So I completely am with you. I'm just, for the general audience, not directed at you, trying to normalize how many men I think are afraid to ever get help, only because to do so would be to out that they have a problem to people in their perimeter. And a lot of times it's their spouse, which is sad, because a lot of times the spouse is like, well, no, I love you. Like, I want you to be healthy and happy. Please, love of God, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
But then they're afraid to, because then somehow they'll see themselves as weak or a burden or unattractive, or they're admitting to their partner that they have some kind of problem in their life. Even if they're working on it, now it's out. And sometimes they don't want that.
All right. Now that that's said.
Yes. Let's talk about the United Kingdom healthcare.
Too late. Did that last week. Or 2 weeks ago, or whenever it was.
I my personal opinion, I wouldn't want you to dismiss any options. You know, and the other thing too is we don't necessarily have to go with, you don't have to pick one.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you've got the men's support group. Sounds like something that you're interested in. Well, you can do that and therapy. You can do them both. I don't think, you know, a support group is not going to conflict most of the time with what you're doing with your therapist. Your therapist would probably enjoy you being part of that group. Also, you know, with the NHS, National Health System, I wouldn't want you to necessarily dismiss that either. You know, I don't personally know much about the UK's mental health system, but I mean, just speaking from like my experience in America, sometimes agencies that are state funded or receive Medicaid dollars are sometimes viewed as lesser quality than organizations that maybe are private pay, cash pay, or bill third-party insurance. And I don't think that's necessarily true in most cases.
Really isn't.
I think there's some great therapists that I know that, you know, have done strictly, that have only worked in like state-funded programs.
I believe at one point we interviewed a therapist from the UK whose name we no longer say because they did ask not to be associated with the show anymore. I get it. I'm not even upset. I get it. That was the right move.
Hurtful, but okay.
Yeah, no, stings a little, but not because you're bad, because we're bad. But they had.
I know this person?
I know. It's like, is this a real story?
No,
it was a real
story.
Yeah, it was in the Patreon. We actually had to delete it from the Patreon too.
Yeah, it was. But this is years ago. This is going back like probably 3 years.
Yeah, it's during
pre-COVID, or was it?
I think it was during COVID.
Anyway,
Okay.
Wait, so when I was in the show, though?
Yeah.
yes.
It was
It was
because
a
of
Patreon.
you, Jake. That they didn't want to be associated.
That's fair.
It wasn't main show.
You say cunt wallet one time, and all of a
Once.
sudden,
I wish it was only once. Then that person wouldn't be ashamed of us.
The episode title.
It was. So they had explained a lot about the British mental health system. And one of the things I remember them teaching us was that when people complain about the NHS, the National Health Service, it's sometimes quality based, but a lot of times it's the length of wait. And we've had some listeners who live in England who've called us and complained about like ADHD treatment and a lot of other things where they're waiting a year and a half. Like it's just because again, it's free healthcare, you know, it's universalized. So it's about the queue. So that can be a big part of this too, which really, I respect the writer's position. This is hard sometimes. And I mean, whether you're in America, whether you're in England, these are usually your options. It's like, okay, I can go to like a low cost, somehow associated with my system option, which usually has a wait and limited variety. I can pay out of pocket, which is usually cost prohibitive, but I can pick whoever I want, but it will be noticed. Or I can go to support groups, which maybe I can get away with for a while, maybe I can't. This is something I think all humans are relating to. The fact that it's in Britain, right? Britain is, did I say it? Is it right? Yeah, I know it's right. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, it makes it more difficult. I'm trying to remember what was just discussed, and it was something like if you have a doctor, I think when Myra was on, if you have like a doctor recommend
Oh, yeah.
that you need mental health care, then you get like 9 sessions.
Right, there was a
It
different
still is
allotment.
not a lot. Yeah,
Right.
even if you go through the NHS. I wonder, and I think I said this on this episode, I wonder if you could find a private, what am I trying to say? If you could find a cash pay, basically a therapist.
I believe they use pesos, but go on.
The peso. If you could find a cash pay therapist that would work within your budget and time, or I think like we said before, maybe if you go to a therapist every week, that can add up. But maybe if you could go every other week or once a month, that would be more often, I think, than that support group you said.
Once every couple of months.
Yeah, once every couple months.
Yeah.
But maybe even starting just once a month and see how that feels with a therapist. Like, could you afford that out of pocket without it being noticed
Good
by your
point.
partner?
Yeah.
I don't know how therapists work, if that's okay in the UK.
That seems to be the edge of the triangle that will wiggle, is the assumption of the writer that all private practice therapists in the UK all are excessively expensive. And at least in America, there are so many tiers of the system, right? There are
Yeah.
students.
Yeah,
There are
that's
people that are post-student, but in their early years learning. Then there are the established therapists, right? And so there's going to be universities that have training programs. There's going to be some kind of like junior league, therapist that is usually going to be at a sliding scale, or ones that are associated with nonprofits or charities or churches or religious establishments.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Whitney on this, just challenging you to really broaden that search, because anybody here in America, you can find a provider at every price point.
Yeah.
This has to exist, because I mean, I'm thinking about cases of abuse where you there's a real reason to hide that from a partner or something like that, or from
I did
from an
think
abuser.
about that too, yeah.
So I mean, like, this exists in some form.
Yes. And another option too, Ryder, and I've had this happen. I've had the situation where somebody's come to me and they are terrified that this is going to get back to a family member or to their spouse or whatever. And abuse is an example that has happened. And in those situations, they've said, they usually come to me first and be like, what are you going to do? Are you going to send something to my home? Is something going to show up in the mail? Like, how private is my care for real? Which honestly is a whole nother thing that doesn't get enough attention in America, because a lot of people get private care and then we send them an entire thing in the mail and their spouse opens it and goes, what? What's going on with this?
Calling claims.
Yeah,
Even
it's
sometimes
like,
I'm like,
yeah,
high alert,
exactly.
who's going to answer?
It gets weird fast.
Yeah.
And so this comes up, and a lot of people are very private about therapy. But one trick that I've seen them use is I've had people say, hey, do you care whose credit card I put on file? I'm like, well, no, as long as it works and as long as you legally have permission to use that credit card. Be like, great, my grandmother will be paying for this. I'll settle up with her elsewhere.
Yeah.
But there will be no bills coming to my house. There will be no charges that my spouse sees. This will be paid for by my friend Larry. And Larry and I are going to sort it out. I'm going to pay him back in, bar tabs or whatever.
I would bet with the new century that we're living in now, with electronic payments for things, you can just communicate via email or via, FaceTime calls, things like that. I mean, it's a lot easier to keep this stuff private now than it ever has been.
Going through a third-party payer, like a family member or a friend, somebody that you've confided in.
Jim will work for Bitcoin.
I exclusively work for Dogecoin.
Is that still around?
I think so. I think it's still a thing.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm really leveraged. That's all I got holding on. So, Ryder, those are really good ideas. What Whitney said, really shopping for price point changes, because it's a much bigger sliding scale than most people realize. I don't know if this website exists in the UK, but Open Path Collective is, I think it's openpathcollective.org or something like that. At least in the States, that's a way to find therapists that have empty slots that are filling them with discounted session space. That's an option. If you guys use Psychology Today up there, I believe they have an entire website that's, oh God, I remember it was BCBS or I don't know, BHS, but it's basically their version of Psychology Today, and it's like a directory, and you can search this huge mega directory. A lot of them are on the NHS system, a lot of them are private pay, but you can search by filtering price point, and like looking for sliding scale and things like that. And I would just encourage you to reach out. A lot of people are afraid to reach out to therapists directly and ask for some financial assistance. It is not rude to do that. We are very comfortable taking that call or taking that email, and we will let you know what our policies are. And a lot of us will say, yeah, I keep 3 discounted slots available. These are the days and times those are available. And like, if that works for you, great. If not, okay, let's keep you moving. But oftentimes you can contact a therapist, and even if you say, hey, do you have an opening, or do you do something cheap? You call Whitney and ask that. If Whitney says no, she'll say, the next question you should ask is, can you have any referrals for me? Which direction would you point me in? And she's going to know and go, oh, yeah, my friend has opening
At least
spaces.
a few.
Yeah, I'll call a few of them.
Don't send them to Jim, though.
Right, don't go see Jim, but I've got other people, competent therapists, that I could send you to.
Ethically, you just can't.
Yeah, just ethically because of all those lawsuits. But, besides that. So, but this is a real thing, Ryder. And you know what? I'm glad that you're willing to look at this despite the need for privacy. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of creative solutions to paying for it so that it's secret. There's a lot of creative solutions to searching for discounted options. I love that you're willing to go to the support group anyway. I agree with everybody at the table that, it's not either or. We can do all of them. And hopefully we get something in your life to move. But good for you for being willing to work on it.
I just thought of an idea to expand pod therapy.
Okay.
Pod therapy worldwide.
Oh,
Wide.
Can we buy a
wide.
boat? Yes.
No, because I think like I was thinking like I wish we had therapists from other countries that we could kind of like bring on every once in a
We
while.
need to create our own.
What if we
directory?
did like a
Yeah.
Pod Therapy Germany edition, and we have
Yeah.
like 3. There's like a German
Das
Jim,
therapy.
a
Yeah.
German Whitney, and a German Nick, and then a German
Okay.
Jacob. But it's just like its own podcast
Yes.
out there.
I bet Laura
start-
would be into
And
that.
then we should
start other
Laura was
ones.
coming up. You
Bad
said
example.
Germany.
Japanese.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Japanese.
Let's go
Jim.
Japanese or any other Axis power from World War II. Italy.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
Italian.
That'd be
Jake's like,
fine.
why do
Let's
I
do
like
Italy,
this so
maybe.
much?
That was weird. In my mind just kind of
just keep going. Just riffing on this.
I mean,
thing.
when you're around it as much as you are,
That's true.
That's true.
you can't get away from it.
I'm trying to do that with Seafood Sugar Cookie. So there's people in the Discord that are really gifted musicians. They're like, hey, can I join Seafood Sugar Cookie? Like, no, but we'll franchise it. And so you can start one in your neighborhood. As long as you kick up some tribute, it's fine. You can go under our banner. We don't care.
Great idea.
There's a lot of ways to do this.
Speaking of expansion, we got some new Therapals.
Dun, 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 dun.
Welcome, Zachary W., Ian Stewart, and Mike Nielsen.
Ooh, welcome. And we got some new Therapods. Welcome, Christine Phillips and Matthew Nair.
Welcome.
And do we need to announce our football?
shoot.
Fantasy football.
I think we still have a few
Whitney, you going to
spots.
sign up?
I
Is
do.
it time for you to play some fantasy football?
Yeah, I'm going to try it. I'm going to
So
do
we've
it.
got an open spot. Jacob, do you want to play?
no,
Okay. Because we have an open spot for you.
Open spot is Jake.
I'm fine. I'm fine without it.
You sure you don't want to be
I'm
a part of
gonna
it?
try
Yeah.
Okay. So here's our options.
If the league won't make if I don't play,
No, we've got it.
Then I'll play.
I
so-
get to make my own team name, right?
Yes. And does Peter play?
Steamboat Salad. What?
Oh, Siberian boathouses.
Siberian boat.
Oh yeah, we should take a vote on what your name is.
Trixie.
Mercedes team.
That's right, Trixie
Trick-
Rail Card or
Rail-
whatever it was.
Oh, I can never
Switch
remember.
track.
Oh, that's it,
It's
Trixie
because I
Switch
can
Track.
never say it. Trixie Switch Track.
That is
Yeah.
a hard one to.
That's a
Okay,
tough one.
so here's what happened. We had one player drop out, so Whitney can just replace that player, and we can keep it at the same number of teams.
Nice.
Or
No.
we can expand the 2 extra spots.
Let's expand it.
You want to expand it?
Yeah, let's
So
give
we
more
have
people
2
an
open
opportunity to play.
spots.
How many teams do you have?
Says-
We
Team
used to be
9,
at 12.
13,
We're going to bump to
14.
14.
There you go. I like that.
So, Jacob, this would be your opening if you
No.
want in. Okay.
Jacob's
So,
been trying to get out of this since
he's never been in it. Yeah. He's always told it like a suicide pact. Like, I'll do it if your only other
Poor
option
Jacob.
is
Yeah.
not do it. Yeah.
Right now,
Doesn't want to do it.
Do you watch football, Jacob?
He
I
loves
do
it.
on occasion.
He burned himself out. He's done too many leagues, and now
Oh.
if he doesn't have to, he's not doing it.
No.
All right. So if you're interested in joining the Pod Therapy Fantasy Football League, apparently we have 2 slots open. The only chance in hell you have of getting into this thing is get into the Patreon if you're not already there. If you are a patron, we defer to TheraProducers first. I've already announced it on the Discord, and the producers that are there's been no takers yet. So those 2 spots are open. So if the producer class has waived their right to prima nocta, then you can go ahead and jump in and throw in your hat and take a shot at it too. So, jump into the Discord. There's a whole thread just dedicated to the fantasy football.
I love that you use prima nocta for anything. Like you just
It's just
it's
dibs.
just Latin words.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what it means. Just
Latin
Latin
dibs,
words.
my dude. Who knows? I'm not the history major in the room.
And thank you to
Yeah,
our
the history major knows
partners.
that didn't exist.
Oh, really?
I think it was made up for
Oh
Braveheart.
my gosh, Polly Mustang is here.
Oh,
Yeah,
are you
that's-
looking at the teams?
That's Smitty.
All the team
it
names
is,
are
yeah.
somehow either references to the show or to
Okay.
psychology.
Oh, Milgram. Yep.
I'm the Milgram Shockers. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm collective daddy this year.
If you can reference the show and burn Jim at the same time, that's
Yeah.
really best case.
Dan Martin, I think, still has the Pod Therapy Listens to You. Remember from
Yeah.
when we had Yakov Smirnoff on the show?
Yeah.
And that's his icon is Yakov Smirnoff?
Yeah.
That one's endured. That's been...
We don't have anybody claiming the Pellos yet.
No. Yeah,
Pellos.
nobody's been the Pellos or the Pelokins.
Oh, maybe I need to act on
that'd be a
that.
solid team. Louisiana Pelicans.
The
Oh my
pillow
gosh.
the pillow biters.
Oh, that's a solid one. It's time for a makeover on these teams. We still have the albino muskrats.
Good.
That's
Yeah,
Ben.
that's Ben.
The Dodo or the Bobo Bears or what is?
Oh, Dodo.
Lambert.
The Bobo Because I think it was a reference to the Bobo dolls.
Yeah, that was it. The Bobo dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a bunch of them in there
Yeah.
that I've endured.
Some really good ones.
Milgram Shockers, Collective Daddy,
Siegfried,
the Philly Freudians.
Philly Freudians.
That's Brian
Yep,
Lehman.
yep,
yeah,
yep.
He's had a solid team for a long time.
I
I've
don't
actually
I don't
been a
know
champion
what my
of the
team
league
name
once.
was. Because I
You
played
were
one
never
year.
in it.
No, I played 1 year.
Did
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
did.
know it trolled me. I'm
sure it did.
confident that's what it was. There's some pot therapy trivia for the next
Somebody
Jeopardy.
will remember and tell us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What was my fantasy football team name?
Yeah.
It might have been Dirty B.
Yeah,
That was it.
Or it
They're
could
a
have been
partner.
Myra.
Since those are their partners.
Thank you to both of you. And thank you, Myra, for the trivia. Appreciate
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Oh, we got 4 more questions, don't we?
We do.
We also want to thank the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, that they're producers. Thank you, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, Smitty Scoop, Ben Don, Judy Schneider, Kayla Lansbury. All right, I'm going to fix this for you, Nick.
God damn it. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Where am I
just Mrs. and Mr. Hot Dog Scoop.
That's what it says.
Fuck you. Malia, Leon Kassab, Cindy Ash, Mason Miller, Richard
get
Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley, Slap in Your Face, Sarah Smith, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, University Jeff, Mike Helm, Paris, Samantha Cohn, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder, Cougar, Falcon Scoop, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, Heyo, Oscar Swanrose, A Sunny Boy, Slurpy Kaye, Motherfucker, Sandra McWaffle, Dan Martin, and Hannah Marinky Dinky Dink. Hannah Marinky Doo.
If you would like to hear this episode uncut and unedited
And why wouldn't you?
and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy. And thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time we got for this week's session. Want to thank our landlords, Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something to keep all to yourself. Share the episode. Tag us on the socials when you do. It's at PodTherapyGuys on Instagram and X, Twitter, /PodTherapy on Facebook. And don't forget about the goodies at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously
Do
at
it.
podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick.
I'm Whitney.
Jim,
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
Later.
are you smarter than a 5th grader?
We're going to find out.
How many teeth should an adult have,
Oh, shit.
including their wisdom?